Proceed to our interview. We have got a bunch of questions here for you to answer. So we can start, right?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Could you introduce yourself, where your current position, your affiliations, and your background?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jelani Nelson. I'm a full professor of computer science at the University of California, Berkeley.
Yeah.
I'm now entering my fifth year here. Prior to this, I was an associate professor of computer science at Harvard University.
Yeah.
I was at Harvard for a total of 6 years. Um, I did my PhD at MIT in computer science, and I was also at MIT for my bachelor's degree as well as my master's degree. Um, Prior to that, I grew up in the Caribbean, in St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
A very small place. Many people don't know it. It's sort of near Puerto Rico and Jamaica and Cuba, that kind of general area.
Yeah.
I was there from grade 1 until high school. I finished high school there, and I only left when I graduated to go to university.
Okay.
Um, my my mother is Ethiopian, and so I have many relatives in Ethiopia. Um, and in 2011, when I was traveling to Ethiopia to visit family, I decided on the side to start a program that's AddisCoder. So the first AddisCoder program was started then, 12 years ago,
Okay.
and now it's an annual summer camp, as the three of you know,
Yeah.
and we give it for free to high school students all across Ethiopia,
Yeah.
as well as providing free housing, free meals, and we teach algorithms, we teach programming in Python, and many of our students, after they finish, develop a better understanding of computer science, and many go on to study computer science at university.
Thank you. We would like to ask you about your background, specifically your connection with Ethiopia, and when did you start feeling that connection with Ethiopia?
I mean, connection since I was a child. I learned the Ethiopian Fidel, like his alphabet, maybe when I was 7 years old or something like that, and I knew basic Amharic also as a child. However, I never visited Ethiopia until 2003, when I was 19 years old. That was my first time visiting.
Yeah.
And then after that, I visited again in 2009, and then again in 2011. And starting in 2011, I started visiting very regularly, at least twice a year, um, spending time with family, running AddisCoder. And now I'm married. We have three children. My wife is also from Ethiopia. She was born and raised in Ethiopia, from Addis Ababa,
Mm,
and she went to Tekurambasa actually, and she used to live in Mizan Aman, near Mizan Teferi.
yeah. Okay, thank you. Jelani, we are particularly interested in hearing your insights on the opportunities that is available to students studying computer science and the related field, especially those who are hail from economically disadvantaged area in the lack substantial prior experience with computers, because you know that when we talk about future careers in Ethiopia, everyone is push someone, not only people but the environment is also have an impact to force students to join some respected careers in Ethiopia, like medicine in the related fields. Uh, because everyone wants a stable life, right? To provide for his family. Could you shed some light on the current global landscape and the avenues that are open for the students who is aiming to join computer science in the related fields in the future?
Yeah, I mean, computer science globally, there are many jobs in computer science. I mean, especially for not only for entrepreneurs, but also especially for entrepreneurs who want to start their own businesses. Um, there was once an article I read in Forbes magazine a few years ago of, was it like the something like the 25 richest Americans under the age of 25 or under the age of 30, I don't remember. And if I, it's been many years since I looked at it, but it was something like, all but one of them made their money from developing software, from making software companies, or something in tech. So there's a lot of opportunity there to make a lot of money, and specifically in Ethiopia, I personally have never lived in Ethiopia or worked in Ethiopia, but from what I hear, there are many good job opportunities. I think good people for you to ask would be, some of the TAs who have even visited you at AddisCoder Spark, like Aku, like Mukaram. They've graduated
also
now.
joining us via Zoom, George.
Yeah. Okay, George. Well, George, yeah, but George doesn't live in Ethiopia. I mean, if you want advice from someone who studied computer science in Ethiopia, now they're working in Ethiopia, my impression is that they got good job opportunities, and maybe you should ask them more about that. But I think even within Ethiopia, there are many good opportunities to get high paying jobs when you have strong computer science knowledge.
Okay, thank you. The next question would be what is your observations regarding the technological advancement in the revolutions that is taking place in Ethiopia? Because everyone is start realizing how important computer science is I think, which is good. And as a professor in the field of computer science, and what recommendation would you give to young individuals like us who aspire to become successful computer scientists, inspired by our own journey in the achievements? I think it would be better if you first talk about your personal journey and the career path you took so far to reach here.
So yeah, my career path. I mean, so I mentioned, I went to school at MIT, my first degree, my master's, my PhD. Yeah. After my final year of PhD, I applied for jobs. Yeah. I received an offer to be a professor at Harvard. I accepted that offer, but I deferred it for 2 years. And in those 2 years, I spent time just doing research at a place called the Mathematical Sciences Research Institute. It's in Berkeley. And also at Princeton University, and also the Institute for Advanced Study. I spent 1.5 years there, so altogether 2 years. And then once I completed that, then I started as a professor. I mentioned I finished 6 years as a professor at Harvard, 4 at Berkeley. Now my fifth at Berkeley. So altogether, this is my 11th year as a professor. Starting 2 years ago, I also started working part-time, 1 day a week, at Google as a research scientist, so I can have some, connection to more avenues for applied impact. In terms of what was your other? You had another question for me related to
jobs
in Ethiopia.
What is your recommendation for students, young individuals like us who want to be a computer scientist in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it depends if you want to go to industry or go to academia. I'd say the majority of people want to go to industry, and even some people who do go to the PhD route or grad school after that decide to go to industry too. I would say, look to the people around you, your seniors who have done it, and kind of learn from them. For example, I mentioned people like Mukaram, people like Aku, also people like Bontu, people like Hana, all the TAs locally who have graduated, they found good jobs. I would say also, the nice thing, if you're more entrepreneurial, if you want to start your own business, I would say the nice thing compared to other fields, with business and software business compared to business in other fields, if you want to do business in other fields, you need a lot of money to start. If you want to export coffee or something, you need to buy land. If you want to import cars and sell cars, you need money to be able to actually start that business. With software, you don't need a lot of capital to get started, right? All you need is access to a computer, maybe the internet, and you can already get started with your business. So I think that's also a nice thing for young people.
Okay, thank you. The other question is, what steps would you recommend for aspiring future computer scientists, which is us, to join reputable companies like Google, NASA, Microsoft, because you already work there in Google. So, what path do you recommend to join these companies?
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to join those kinds of big international tech companies, right now, I think they do not have offices in Ethiopia. So joining a company like, say, Google or Facebook or Microsoft would require moving, so nearby, some of them have offices in Kenya, Ghana, etc. Or, you could also go further away. So
Yeah.
one of the TAs at AddisCoder this summer, Nathaniel, he studied at Amiskilo. Now he's working in Ireland, at Google.
Yeah.
So I think, depending on where you go to university, like for example, at AOSTU and also at Amiskilo, there's a program now called A2SB, Africa to Silicon Valley. So I don't know if you're aware, but many of the TAs that we had at AddisCoder this summer from Ethiopia, several of them were connected to A2SV. So Nathaniel, for example, he did A2SV when he was in school at Amiskilo. Yada did A2SV. Hana, maybe. Yabsara also did. I don't remember exactly. Bontu maybe as well. I don't remember exactly who did and who didn't.
Okay.
But they provide training for interviews to help the students be successful in interviews and get jobs at places like Google and Slack, etc., Databricks, and other big tech companies. And some of them not only get internships, but also get full-time job offers as well, like Nathaniel, for example. But, even if you don't go to one of those two schools, A2SV possibly could spread to more places in the future. I don't know. ASTU, right there in Adama. There are other ways you can train your skills, like getting involved in the Ethiopia competitive programming contest. So Mukarram, who was an AddisCoder TA and visited you at AddisCoder Spark, he was part of the team from ASTU, representing Adama Science Technology University last year, I guess. And they actually made it to the world finals and competed against teams all over the world in Bangladesh. So big tech companies, they like to see people who have done things like that, because it shows that you have some skill and you have passion for programming.
Okay. The other major thing is, can you elaborate the key difference between individuals, particularly computer scientists, who pursue careers in academia versus in the industry field? Given your experiences working in both Google and as a professor in one of the prestigious universities around the world, what path would you recommend for aspiring individual in each domain, the industry domain and the academia domain, and what are the specific differentiating factors between them?
I would say academia, the job is different. First of all, most academics are at a university that involves teaching. So part of your job is to teach undergraduate students, teach graduate students possibly, if your university has a graduate program, other university duties, mentor students, mentor PhD students or other graduate students, mentor postdoctoral fellows, and you do research, of course. If you're at a research university, like a big part of what I do is research. And there's also more freedom and maybe longer horizons for the kinds of research impact you want to have. It's okay if the thing you study doesn't have impact for the next 10 years or 20 years, or sometimes quantum computing. People have been studying quantum computing for decades, but we haven't actually built a large-scale quantum computer yet in the real world. And also within computer science especially, there are certain sub-areas of computer science that are maybe better suited for study in academia, things that are more at the foundations of computing that have less room for application, like certain areas of complexity theory or computability theory back in the day, things like that. In industry, I mean, first of all, generally you won't teach in industry, right? It's a different job. Depending, you can do research in industry. So there are many places that have industrial research research units within the company. Google has research, Microsoft has research, IBM has research, Facebook has research, etc. Many of the people, almost all of the people who work in the research divisions of these companies also do have PhDs, and they do spend a lot of time doing research at the company. But by and large, the goal of a company is to, serve its customers and produce profits. It's a for-profit enterprise.
Yeah.
And, generally employees should do things that are aligned with the company's, motives and ability to produce revenue, right? Which means, if you're at a company, generally you'll see less of people working on problems that have horizons of 10 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out. Generally the company has, shorter term things that it needs to get done, and you should contribute to those things. There's still room to work with students, like I mentioned, as in academia you mentor students, but you also can mentor students in industry, maybe to a lesser extent, but it still happens via internship programs. These companies do take interns, especially over the summer, and if you work there, you'll get a chance to mentor them. But it's a different job, and it's maybe I would say less freedom, because as an academic, you're kind of your own boss. You work on whatever you want. At a company, you have to kind of fit your interests with map them to what's useful for the company. But I think many people derive a lot of pleasure also from having applied impact, right? If you're at a company like Google and you're on the team that the Gmail team or the search team or the YouTube team, etc., the things you do impact the experiences of billions of people in the world. So there's people take pride in that, or derive pleasure from that, and the same could happen in academia as well. You could invent something. Someone discovered electricity at some point. Someone invented the light bulb, and it's invention versus research. There's some line there, but research at the end of the day is about inventing new things, discovering new things, new knowledge, right? So sometimes if you're lucky, something you discover might actually have great impact on people, but usually the horizon for that is longer. You might not see that impact until much farther into the future, compared to industry, where you might usually see that impact much more quickly.
Okay. In academia, how does it feel being a professor, or have you ever thought of quitting this job and joining the industry? How is it?
Well, I do work in industry. I work at Google 1 day a week. So currently I work in both.
Yeah.
My full-time job, I work 100% at UC Berkeley, and then I work part-time 1 day a week at Google. I think I like my current jobs. I don't see myself quitting academia anytime soon to be full-time in industry, for example.
So, Professor, I think we have been talking about that. So, it's useful information. But one thing I'm always curious about is opportunities that high school students learning in other countries like USA got. So, you have been teaching algorithm and the CS in Ethiopia for a long time. So, you got the chance to compare Ethiopian high school students with others like US high school students. So, how do you compare both students, like high school students from Ethiopia and the US? Are really Ethiopian high school students are below the global standard? What do you say on that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think Ethiopian high school students are below the global standard. I mean, I think I think well, AddisCoder, we tend to get the strongest of the students, and the students we get are very, like you all are very strong. I mean, I've just if I look at the trajectory of Ethiopian students, who come to the U.S. and study, one example I'll give is someone who came to. Wait, actually, let me see. 1 second. Yeah, so his title right now is Vice President at IBM Research. I believe he was or is the head of IBM Research Africa. He's Ethiopian. His name is Solomon Asafa. He did his high school, all his schooling in Ethiopia. Then he came to the U.S. for university. He majored at MIT. He majored in, I believe, electrical engineering. He did his PhD in, I think, 3 years, which is extremely fast. Especially in engineering, I think it's almost unheard of to be able to finish your PhD in 3 years. Usually, it takes at least 5 years. So, I think he was doing research on batteries, and I think that shows like he came to the world's best engineering university. Not only did he graduate, but he completely killed it. He succeeded very well at in his PhD. He then got a good job at IBM Research, which was one of the leading companies in the area, and now he has a leadership position as a vice president for IBM. Right? I mean, this is just one example, but and he's older than me. He's probably like 4 or 5 years older than me. And then I see it in my own students from AddisCoder. Like, we've had students graduate from AddisCoder. Some of them come to the U.S. to study, and they get very good jobs. We've had maybe 4 or 5 students from AddisCoder eventually get jobs, full-time jobs at Google. We had one get a full-time job at Microsoft, at AMD. Some of them have interned at Facebook, at Apple. We also have one who's full-time at Amazon. These are the major top tech companies in America, right? So I think our Ethiopian students, they're very strong Ethiopian students.
Okay.
I think maybe one thing, you asked me the difference Ethiopian students and American students. I think maybe one difference is there's AddisCoder. Maybe access to certain enrichment opportunities, I would say. So, you have certain programs outside of school in Ethiopia, like AddisCoder, and also there are others as well. I think in the U.S., there are more opportunities like that, and especially, like AddisCoder, many of the students who do it are in 10th or 11th grade. But if you look in the U.S., there are a lot of programs that even start younger, so that kids, by the time they get to 10th or 11th grade, they've already learned everything. I mean, this isn't common in the U.S., but there are kids like this. By the time they get to 10th or 11th grade, they've already learned everything from AddisCoder. They already learned programming when they were 10 years old. They already learned basic algorithms when they were 12 years old. And then, by the time they get to high school, they get involved in like programming Olympics, and they might represent America. Well, not that many do each year. Only 4 make the team, but we have kind of a much bigger system in America for reaching more kids and reaching them earlier, so they get earlier exposure and earlier training. So I don't think I think maybe over time, like programs like there'd be more and more programs like AddisCoder, so that more kids are reached and more kids get training, like what you're doing. You're creating a new program and helping more students, more of your juniors, and hopefully more students maybe some of your students will do that too in the future and carry on Spark, or maybe in other parts of Ethiopia we'll have more programs, maybe programs that target younger students, programs that target kids who are 12 years old or something, right? But yeah, I think it's just about access to enrichment programs, I think.
And the other thing is, uh, let let provide something insight into the AddisCoder program, starting from its foundation. We would like to learn how it was initiated, what the idea, where the idea came from, and how you came up with the name AddisCoder. Additionally, for students who aspire to join AddisCoder in the future, because the students now who is learning AddisCoder Spark is also want to join AddisCoder in next year and etc. But for students who aspire to join AddisCoder in the future, what steps should they take? And this and as AddisCoder alumni, we three of us, how can we contribute to the program in the give back, because we gained a lot, so we have to provide. We are expected to give a lot. And can you talk on this topic?
Sure. Yeah, and I guess you asked me three different questions. You asked me, how did AddisCoder get started? That was the first question.
Yeah.
You asked me, what can students do to get into AddisCoder next year in the future?
Yeah.
You asked me, as alumni, what can you do to help?
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, the third question is the easiest. What can you do to help? I think you're already doing it, right?
Yeah.
Creating more programs like Spark and getting more kids, interested in computer science. Whether or not they do AddisCoder in the future, you're still giving benefit to a lot of students, and I think that's valuable. The other question was, what can students do to be able to get into AddisCoder? I mean, the application will be up this fall, so they just have to apply online. They have to write an essay about why they want to be in the program. They have to upload their ministry result. They have to upload their transcript from their school.
Yeah.
And, it is a competitive program to get accepted. So last summer we had approximately 700 applications on the website, and we accepted about 50. And we had an additional 50 who were directly chosen by the Ministry of Education. So in total it was about 100, but 50 got in from the website. So, I would say, there's not really a good answer other than, it is a competitive, the best way to get in is to be a top student. I mean, we look at the grades very carefully, and we also look at the essay. If you want to get in the other way, which is the ones who are directly selected by the Ministry of Education, at least last year, the process was that the ministry contacted universities across Ethiopia, and they asked each university, I want you to pick one or two students, in your geographical area. So I don't remember what the full list of universities was. Probably one of them would have been ASTU. So ASTU probably had to select one or two students from Adama or the region. And I don't know how ASTU did that selection. That would be a good question to ask them. I know some universities did the selection based on just looking at transcripts and looking at top ranked students. Some other universities did the selection if they had their own STEM program. So some universities in Ethiopia have their own high school STEM program. For example, Bahir Dar University has the Bahir Dar University STEM Center, right? So what they did was they looked at the high school students who were part of their STEM center already, and they identified the top candidate or top two candidates from their STEM center. So if ASTU has such a center, maybe that could be one way to get involved. So that's that. And then your last question, which was about the history of AddisCoder. So I mentioned that the first time I taught AddisCoder was in 2011. At that time, we did not provide dorms, we did not provide food. Class was only 2.5 hours a day. It was right after lunch. Kids had to come to class on their own and go back home. So all the kids we had that year were from Addis Ababa. They lived in Addis Ababa, or if you're not from Addis, you had to have your own relative or something to stay with, because we did not provide housing for that at that time. Class, I mentioned, was only 2.5 hours a day. It was not all day. I partnered with someone at Addis Ababa Institute of Technology, Amis Kilo, and they let us use their facilities. So They gave me a classroom that I could use the classroom. They gave me access to the computer lab so the students could do their homeworks in the computers. I made a website to advertise the program, and there are two very popular radio stations in Addis, Shagar FM and Afro FM, and both of them gave us free advertising for the program on the radio, so that was helpful. There was also, I don't know if you've heard of this university, NYU Abu Dhabi, but there are many Ethiopians who go there. They give full scholarships. And at that time, there was someone, Ethiopian, who was hired by NYU Abu Dhabi to recruit strong students to apply to NYU Abu Dhabi. So because of that contract she had, part of her job was talking to a lot of different high schools and telling the high schools encouraging the high schools to have their kids apply to NYU. So she had a lot of connections at high schools in Addis. So because of that, someone connected me to her, and she agreed to advertise AddisCoder also to those high schools. So every time she met with the high school teachers and she would tell them about NYU Abu Dhabi, she would also tell them about AddisCoder. So that way a lot of the kids found out about the program and they applied to the program. So that was in 2011. We had 80-something students.
Is there
complete
TS?
the program. There's one TA, only one TA.
Okay.
He lived in Ethiopia. He's still in Ethiopia. He's a software engineer. And he's also an entrepreneur. He doesn't work for a company. He finds his own contracts and does his own work. His name is Imnet Warku. And yeah, so that was 2011. Many of our students from 2011, one of them was Abraham, who was a TA for AddisCoder. You remember him this year?
Yeah.
So he was in AddisCoder 2011.
Was
so was his brother. Okay, so was his brother. Iosias also was his brother, was also there. And I think Iosias later might have worked for INSA, I'm not sure, in Ethiopia. But we also had some students from the 2011 class study outside. 2 of them went to Germany to study. They still live in Germany now. 1 went to Harvard, 2 went to MIT, 3 went to Princeton, 2 went to Trinity College. One of them just finished his PhD in computer science, actually. Some of them went to Columbia University, NYU Abu Dhabi, etc. And several of them, went to Google and Facebook and these places. Some of them, I think a couple of them even got married now and have children. So, because that was 2011, that was 12 years ago. So you figure 12 years ago they were in high school. So 12 years ago they were like 16, 17. Now they're like 28, 29, right? So they're working, they got married, etc.
Okay. Yeah, please.
Oh, and maybe I'll say more. So you wanted to know more about the history. So that was the first one.
Yeah.
That was the first AddisCoder.
Yeah.
Then, when I looked at who were these students, what I noticed was, even though AddisCoder was free, many of the students from AddisCoder came from private schools, not the government school. We had some students from government school, but a lot of them were from private school. And it's not the end of the world. I went to private school when I was a kid. It's okay. But it kind of bothered me because there are a lot of smart students in the government schools, and there are more students in the government schools.
Yeah.
So I thought, why is it that I'm getting more kids sign up from the private schools than the government schools? The government school students, a lot of them didn't even try to get it to AddisCoder. So what I decided to do what I thought what I was going to do was just work directly with the Ministry of Education and ask the ministry to help me select top government school students for AddisCoder.
Didn't they involve in the recreation steps in 2011 or the ministry?
The Ministry of Education was not involved in 2011 at all. So the first time they got involved was 2016. So what happened was, I wanted to I wanted to work with the Ministry of Education so that they can help select the top students.
Hello?
The problem is, I was not living in Ethiopia. I was living in the U.S. Right? My heart ministry, So I didn't even I didn't even know anyone at the ministry. So I didn't know who should I contact, who should I ask. I didn't. So it was confusing for me. So then what I thought is maybe if I partner with some, I guess you say Bala Sultan, right?
Yeah.
Someone who is maybe
Godfather.
has connections.
Yeah.
They can talk to the ministry for me.
Yeah.
So I talked to a few different people. I'm not very. I don't. I'm not involved in politics or anything like that. So I didn't really know these people. But what ended up happening was, remember, I was a professor at Harvard at this time, and I remembered there was a business student at Harvard. His name was Alula Ishete. And I asked Alula, I said, hey, I don't know, you might not know his father. His father is someone named Andreas Ishete. Do you know that name?
Who?
Andreas Ishete. Do you know him?
No, I don't know.
Okay. Andreas Ishete, Professor Andreas, he used to be a professor in the US actually, and then he moved back to Ethiopia.
Okay.
And he was the president of Addis Ababa University.
Okay.
This is many years ago,
Yeah.
at least 10 years ago probably. I don't remember exactly when. Maybe more than 10 years ago. And anyway, Alula was his son. And I met Alula because Alula was a Harvard student. So I thought, okay, if your father was the president, and after he retired from being the president of Addis Ababa University, and then he became advisor to the prime minister. This was during Meles Zenawi.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, he was president of the university, then he was advisor to the prime minister. Because of his role, the universities in Ethiopia are under the Ministry of Education.
Yep.
Addis Ababa University is under the Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
So if he's the president of the university, I thought he must know the leadership from the Ministry of Education. Probably he even knows the minister directly. So I thought, okay, let me try to ask him, please ask your father if he can, get involved and help me to communicate with the Ministry of Education. So he asked his father, and his father, I heard back. His father also is a much more senior person. He's retired, so he's not very active. Then after that, Alula introduced me to Samhal Meles Zenawi's daughter.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had a meeting on Skype.
Okay.
So, I just told Samhal, she's young, by the way, she's maybe 30-something years old.
Okay.
I just told her what I wanted. I said, I really want there to be more government school students in AddisCoder. And she agreed, and she said, yeah, she believed it. She said, yes, I agree. Computer science is very important. We need to have more government school students. And she said, Jelani, why are you only thinking government school students from Addis Ababa? Why don't we have government school students from all over Ethiopia?
Yeah.
From Adama, from Gambela, from Harar, from Benishangul, everywhere. Okay. And I thought, well, that'd be great, but if we have students from everywhere, we have to give them a dorm, we have to give them food, we have to help arrange their transportation. It's, how are we going to do that? Where are we going to get these dorms? How are we going to afford it? So at that time, she said, Jelani, look, actually, now I think I'm not sure how it's operating, given the recent political changes, etc. But there was, the Meles Zenawi Foundation that she was a part of. So at that time, the Medalist Foundation agreed that they will partner and facilitate all of this. They will secure the dormitories, they will arrange for the food, they will arrange for the transportation, and they will work with the Ministry of Education so that the ministry can select students from not just Addis, but from government schools across all of Ethiopia. So that was in 2016, the first time that we did that with the Medalist Foundation. We worked again with them in 2018, 2019. We were ready to do also 2020. And then 2020, you remember, and this was Medalist Foundation, but also the ministry was also involved. The ministry was selecting students, of course. And also we were always using facilities. Well, usually we're using facilities under the control of the ministry. For example, Amiskilo or EASTU. I guess EASTU at the time might have been under the Ministry of Science and Technology. It's changed over time. I believe maybe now it's under the Ministry of Education, I'm not sure. But anyway, it was with the government, with the Ethiopian government. And 2020 we had to cancel, unfortunately, because of COVID. In 2021, again, because of COVID. And then 2022, there were the conflict, the war, and that created some problems for us, so we postponed it. And eventually, finally, we did it this summer again, 2023, and we're going to start again every year. We will do it next year and the next year, etc. And now, I think the Medalist Foundation is not operating as it was before. So now we are working directly partnered with the Ministry of Education. So we have our own organization, AddisCoder Incorporated, and we are partnered. We have an MOU that we signed directly with the Ministry of Education, with the Ethiopian government. So we did it together this year in partnership, and we will continue next year and onward also partnered.
Okay. The next question would be let's talk about the topic of algorithms. Could you please explain what an algorithm is and why it is important to learn and understand? Because many individuals tend to focus solely on coding without fully grasping the basic of algorithms. I think since your field of study focus on algorithm, I guess you have a lot to say on algorithm.
Yeah, at the end of the day, algorithms are not necessarily, you can understand algorithms without computers. An algorithm is just a method for solving a problem or a method for doing something. So for example, if I tell me 547 plus 9,416, okay, you didn't memorize that. Probably you never added those two numbers before, but you know how to add them. Right? There's a process, there's a procedure. That procedure, that how do I do it? That's the algorithm. Okay? So when you learn algorithms and you design algorithms, basically the main point is there might be many different ways to solve the same problem. Different algorithms to solve the same problem. And as someone who designs algorithms, you try to design an algorithm that's the best way, the most efficient, maybe the fastest, or uses the least amount of memory, etc. So, you saw some of that in AddisCoder. We teach different ways of sorting, for example, merge sort versus selection sort versus quick sort. Also ways to speed up computation using memoization, if you remember. So if you just do the basic recursion, it could be very slow, but if you memoize, both of them are correct. They will both give you the same correct answer, but maybe the memoization could be, it could take 30 seconds to solve the problem. When you don't memorize, some of the examples we did in class, they take a long time to solve the problem. And when you do memoization, it becomes, almost instantaneous, much faster. So, just different ways of solving problems, different algorithms, and try to find the best algorithm.
Most of the people who major in computer science, they are really good at math. Where does the use of math comes from? Most of the people also they will major when they do their computer science majors, and how does the need of or the use of math can, like, how can you rate these two things?
Yeah, I mean, math is very important in computer science. Algorithms is more on the theoretical side of computer science that involves a lot of proof-based mathematics. But I think generally mathematics is used even in the less theoretical parts, especially things like computer vision, graphics, machine learning, and AI. You need a lot of probability and understanding of probability, understanding of linear algebra. And I mean, those are two of the big ones, but discrete mathematics also, and logical reasoning, and understanding how to prove things, like what is a proof, how do you formalize proofs, and really, I mean, especially in theoretical computer science, other areas of mathematics that you might not expect end up being useful. Like, people have found applications of algebraic geometry and abstract algebra and topology and complex analysis and all these, functional analysis, etc. Things that number theory, things that you might not expect are relevant for computer science. Many of these areas of mathematics have found applications in computer science.
Okay. The other question is probably the end question. Can you share your experience of your very first day at MIT as a student? Because I think if anything interesting story or memorial, can you share the first day of your MIT?
My very first day, I mean, I don't remember exactly. I was 17 years old.
Probably the first week, if you're not.
So MIT had this thing where, there was like orientation. So you're supposed to, if you're a first year student, you're supposed to arrive, back then that's how it was. You arrive at the university maybe 1 week early or 10 days early, I don't remember exactly. And there's no class yet. It's just, you're getting used to the university. So they have a lot of events. You go to all the different dormitory buildings, you learn about the different dormitories, you learn about the different clubs, karate club, table tennis club, swimming club, and they have a lot of events for students to enjoy themselves and to learn more about the university in the very beginning. And then I think once the classes started, and then it's hard work. I remember, I don't remember if it was the first week or later, but I remember that I realized that there was a lot that I didn't know, and there are a lot of really smart people who, I mean, pretty much everyone at MIT is smart, but people were coming in with different levels of knowledge. So I think I mentioned this, that the availability of enrichment opportunities outside of school. There are a lot of kids who learned a lot of very advanced things before they even got to MIT. So then we were in the same class, and like a lot of this stuff was very easy for them in the beginning because they already saw it before, they already learned it before. And for me, everything was brand new, and I found it very challenging, especially in the beginning. And I think even my first physics exam, even maybe my first 2 physics exams at MIT, I believe I failed the exam, if I remember correctly. And luckily, they gave like a makeup exam. Anyone who failed the exam, you could take the second exam, and they will count that one instead. And then that was okay for me. But yeah, I mean, it took me a little, some time, maybe several months, to get used to MIT. Like, I was the kind of student, I was like a bad student in high school. Not bad, my grades were very good, but I was not a disciplined student. I did not study in high school. When I was in high school, for me, school was very easy. Like, I just listen to the teacher and I understand everything. I don't study for the exam. I just go to the exam and I usually get 100, right? So for me, high school was very easy. And then when I got to MIT, it was not that easy anymore.
Yeah.
Like the questions were very hard and it was very advanced. Maybe like AddisCoder, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like AddisCoder, I think they gave you some hard questions sometimes,
Yeah.
challenging questions that made you really think hard. So it took me some time at MIT to get used to that. I wasn't used to having to really study hard before I got to university.
Is there any regret? What's your biggest regret that you want to share it with us?
I don't have any really big regrets. I mean, I think I think things have worked out for me quite well. I studied. At the end of the day, when I graduated, I had good grades. I got to a good graduate programs. I got good job. I have a good wife. I have 3 kids. I love my kids. So everything I think has been pretty good.
When it comes to family, I want to ask you something. Jelani, any names you have chosen for your children? I would be interested to know the names you have given them, if possible.
My children, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have my daughter is 5 years old. Her name
Oldest
is
one?
Haraya.
Aria.
Haraya.
Aria, okay.
Maybe
okay.
I can.
I got it.
But I can try to. Let me try to type it. That's her name.
Yeah, okay.
So that name, I don't know. Do you know what it means?
I think it is American language, but I don't know its meaning.
It's not Amharic, actually. It's
It's-
Giz.
Gaze or something related to
It's
Ethiopia?
Giz, yeah.
Yeah,
It's Giz.
yeah.
So it means the same thing as in Amharic.
Okay.
If you were to say it in Amharic, this is the meaning in Amharic.
Okay, the chosen one. I think.
Yeah, he chose her specifically.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
chose.
Right.
In this case, he means God, Xavier, Marat. Actually, I think there is in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, there is a saint, Tekla Haymanot, I believe. His mother's name is Ixiaria. Ixiaria. He chose her. God chose her. So that's my daughter, Haria.
Okay.
And then my son's name is Dagim.
Dagim.
It's a
Dagim.
common name, I think.
Yeah, it's common.
Dagim.
Yeah.
And then, my third son, my third child, he's actually going to be born next week.
Oh
He's still
yeah,
in
you
the
told
stomach.
me. Yeah. Did you name it so far?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we didn't give the name officially until he's born, but we have our idea. We have an idea for the name.
Okay.
I'll tell you next week. When he's born.
Okay. I don't forget you. I will ask you again. I think we have only 1 hour for the Google Meet, and the time is about to end. Only 3 minutes left. At the end, this is your time. Anything you want to say to children who is studying AddisCoder Spark and also want to join AddisCoder in the future, because this is your time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you all are doing this. I think it's a great thing that you're doing to help other students at your in Adama. So, are the students there from your high school, or are they from all over Adama? I'm curious.
They are also many of them are from our school, from Adama, and some of them are from Bishoftu, Aku's hometown. Bishoftu.
Yeah, both from Oda Bishoftu and Oda.
Yeah. Because we asked the school to provide dorm for our students, and they do not want to add other students, so we can add.
Okay. But yeah, it's still a great thing that I think we're doing, and as I mentioned, we had 700 people apply to AddisCoder. We could only take 50.
Yeah.
So I think even if someone wanted AddisCoder, and if they unfortunately did not get it next year, I would say it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
You can still learn on your own. There are online resources. I didn't do AddisCoder, and I did okay in my life. So it didn't exist when I was a kid. So I think take control of your life. Take control of your own learning opportunities.
Yeah.
There are a lot of resources available online for free. Even AddisCoder, all of our class material is online for free.
Yeah.
But other things, CW, OpenCourseWare at MIT, edX, Coursera, all these things are free. So there's a lot of opportunity to learn. And I think I'm probably only have a very short amount of time left. So thank you again for inviting me, and congratulations to all the Spark students who are graduating today.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jelani. We appreciate that.
Okay, good night.
Yeah, say hi to students.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.